Thanks, y'all, for coming out. We're all in this together. You know that time when you dropped the last hot wing on the kitchen floor, which was looking pretty clean if we're all being honest, and everyone was facing the game anyway, so you made the tough call and did what you thought was the right thing? To bite into that dirty wing, except now with everyone watching, is what it's like to give a poetry reading. Now, you all, as discerning members of the audience, your situation is considerably improved. I mean, you've got options. For instance, you could try to determine how many drinks the poet had at brunch before the reading by how nervous he appears to be. Twitching uncontrollably? This moron thought he could go it alone. Herky-jerky, but kinda keeping it together? 1 or 2 mimosas. Ice cold? This guy's fucking schnockered. And this is what you've been waiting for, because now anything could happen. He might break down crying in the middle of his breakup poem. He might start cursing his ex, or God even. See what I mean? You never know what poet is on the verge of a nervous breakdown. It's also worthwhile to keep an eye on the people around you. Advanced poetry listeners might smuggle in some booze of their own and play a little game called Take a Drink every time the poet alludes to his sex life. Pretty soon everyone's drunk and crying in the aisles. Whatever the case, the trick is to embrace the madness. But be honest, you'd have eaten the last hot wing too. My sister's here, who just had a baby and made an uncle of me, which is fun because you don't have to fill out any forms or anything. You're just suddenly an uncle, whether you deserve to be or not. And we text sometimes. This poem comes from a conversation we were having by text, and it was the first time that she sent me an image of the very first ultrasound of the baby who's now in the world. And so this ends with words of hers and a sentence fragment which she was concerned about, but didn't realize that poets have no problem with sentence fragments. I think that's all you need to know here. It's called ultrasonic text. Oh, I don't usually do drugs. Ultrasonic text. After the image of what can only be described as a black and white chicken nugget, Sarah and I are joking that I'm high because I actually am pretending to only be pretending to be high, and after I indicate important truths such as that I just used the word just 5 times in the last 26 words, and taking great care to point out that the author of these profundities is the uncle of her unborn child, Sarah calmly replies, "The baby was wiggling and waving already. That makes you feel like you're high. Something that is 2 inches long and has a whole body and all of his organs and is waving." So poetry credit to Sarah for that one, because that's where that gets good. Brandon's book is here. It's really good. He's reading next. I recommend it. I stayed up late last night reading from it again. One thing I've been doing over the last few years is writing what I call translation poems, and the reason for the scare quotes is that they're translations from English to English of poems that already exist. And I guess I think of that not as rewriting the original poem, but of creating a new poem out of maybe the syntactic structures that existed in the other poem, or altering pronouns and various nouns and adjectives, and really everything. It becomes a whole new world, a new poem. But ideally, at least the way I think of it, the ghost of the original poem lies somewhere underneath it. So a palimpsest then, perhaps. This one is after Wallace Stevens, his poem. This will give you an idea of how it kind of works. And this one I changed the title. His is "The Good Man Has No Shape," and mine is "The Grave Man Has No Space." For clouds we trudged through scarcity. The eons were our only chance. We imagined photons exciting electrons like gulls viewing humans as sand. We made football because, if it was bad, at least we knew replays were plausible. Finally, the teleprompter dragon dragged us into deep sleep, our inner demons intact, though not direct. We rip his whales apart to mark him. We place him in his box, all his scotch poured out, with a notebook to spill the nothingness in, and over this we make a grave signature, a yield sign to breath, which says this carousel ought to repeat itself, as if we never did. I I know for a fact that I'm not the only baseball fan here today. I've not been successful in writing poems about baseball generally, but this one at least mentions a little bit of it. Basically, it's me going to the library and then taking my library books and watching baseball. It's called The Odds. It has been a perfectly gray and rainy day in Austin, and work totally sucked, but wasn't entirely terrible, and the sky was kind enough to stop spitting at me long enough for my bike to carry itself and me back to my tiny hovel, which promptly I left. The library is an unsurprising reason for me to be happy, I suppose, but I even nodded at the cop to acknowledge he exists, though cops have only been partially nice to me of late. Perhaps it was due to the Liechtenstein I'd plucked up just as the lights were dimmed to say, "Get thee gone, thou patron wastrel, useless scoundrel," etc., which anyway is how I saw it. So I took myself and Liechtenstein's dots, Larry Levis, John Keaty, Murder Ballad, A.E. Stallings, who is in Greece, I think, Foucault's This Is Not a Pipe, after Magritte, and the grand entirety of Impressionism to the parlor for pepperoni and PBR. It is baseball season. Buckholz and the rest of the Sox are making the Yanks look positively stupid in their new Yankee Stadium, and I only wish they were in Camden Yards, which is bound to never happen, if only so I can say Camden Yards in a poem. Success! I am exquisitely poor and abusing credit. I don't mind. The Twilight Zone pinball machine is clacking and dinging, and Mike Napoli is on base, sporting a balaclava bunched around his neck. Fuck you, Alex Rodriguez. Yes, the pizza was splendid, thanks. Liechtenstein says, I can translate anything, maybe even Calvin and Hobbes, or my childhood love affair with prepubescent misanthropy. Outside, a small man is telling another how he quit mechanics to climb and prune trees, and from off to the side I nod. He doesn't see me, the Yankees don't see me, and God exists only in poems, and the brilliant backdrop of green behind the lone man on the mound, the sparse array of 8 others to save him if or when he dishes a hit, between batter and him and that far wall, that ball to be projected, lifted, and by, how unlikely, a single stick of ash. This next poem is an older poem that I recently revisited and reworked considerably because I wanted to send it to an asteroid. Literally, NASA did this cool thing where, like, if you tweeted to them like an image of a poem or an artwork of your own or whatever, and you hashtagged it right and whatever, it would go on a little tiny hard drive or flash drive or what have you on a space probe to an asteroid, which takes off in September. And the probe is called Osiris, which is named after, interestingly enough, the Egyptian god of death and the afterlife and so on. And so the poem's called, oh, fun fact, because I created a Twitter account just for this one tweet, 100% of my tweets are going to space. Osiris syncs with the asteroid. After my final approach and possible denouements, it would be fitting to have survived myself long enough to tell just one of my immaculate friends which photons or Bowie songs or fist bumps were best for me, and why my limited faiths were decidedly corporeal. To Ptolemy I say this: we still behave as if our rock is center of the cosmos, our particular arcade, this articulate charade. And it's likely too much to convince any one of my survivors our sentience is both our most and least significant event. For the mere possibility unfolds considerably across our slight collection of stars. We are, then, just fortunate enough to know ourselves as the best and worst of the known universe, and perhaps only one of those two to the rest. Yeah, I'm going to go for it. There's a poem I've been working on for 14 months at least, which I don't know if it's all the way there, but it's one that I think is important to me anyway. So it's a bit longer. It's the last thing I'll read. It has an epigraph which has to do with screaming, partly because I've, in the last couple of years, gotten into metal again. I'm very unapologetic about this. It's been really cool to find out that the metal world has diversified so much. We're kind of in a renaissance of metal music. So there's like subgenres, like black metal was there, and then now there's atmospheric black metal. There's even folk metal, if you can imagine what that would be. The other day in traffic, I heard a metal song for the first time that was just jamming along with shredding guitars, and suddenly there was a banjo in the middle of it. So that exists. I like that exists. The epigraph says, normal speech is from Scientific American Mind. It says, normal speech has only slight variations in loudness, whereas screams violently clamor through our vocal cords, varying in volume 30 to 150 times per second. It results in what is called roughness, a certain startling discordance in sound that the human brain associates with fear. And the poem is called Hive. I'm not frustrated, I'm a fucking solid. I'm preparing the tragedy for burial so that then I'll have some metaphorical goats, an actual rickety truck to work on, some clothesline on which to hang my tattered clothes. I'll maybe even have fallen in love, gone to a biker convention, tasted grease. All this before the final forgetting. That forgetting is the blistering olive that lives in my brainstem. Eons ago, I was all brainstem. Now I'm cerebral, cortical, hippocampus-ish. My smells garner memories of nylon birthday tents, tiny trains trafficking the train tracks, their faint scent of electrical burning, crepe myrtles, the melting ice cream cones smuggled into Indiana Jones. But there are others like us. They live here in the streets between me and you, gasoline, food trucks, the spell of unshowering. Like listening to black metal, now there's a comparison. And who isn't unapologetic about returning to one's death metal roots? It has all gotten so much better. Now I just reread the first statement, that I'm not frustrated, etc., and immediately thought, unreliable narrator. What does this say about me? If we're incapable of a purely physical relationship, then it isn't a purely physical relationship. I require sun and genes equally. Let's all incinerate our genes in the sun at least once, yes? Okay. But that sun is a blister too, just like the song. Song is that thing which repeats itself in various unwinding iterations onto roughness. Like this Death Heaven album they titled Sunbather. I adore the merging of words just as I can't get over the asexual divergence of cells. So I replied in a text to Paula, who first said it, that I'd name the manuscript Stupid Cold, because it sometimes feels like that. I'm a mammal, I do 9,536 things, cutting and salting the avocado just so. It feels just that slippery, and with a big pit at the middle of it. Now I am tired. The potato in my chest only sprouts when the cabinet door is closed. I'm a trucker blinking on the highway. Let me merge. I'll do terrible things, but I'm only one person, and how much damage can one person do without someone to do the damage to? Not you, of course. I'd never, even though you might want it. I like how your body rises against me like an Andalusian plane lifting into an unforgiving, thankless, and scarring heat. But you're a tundra, a cold tiger, a polar wolverine. You come looking for heat just as you're icing me down. I go into those caveats of sound hoping for water but wanting food, tiring myself out with the mere fact of moving. And that's to say nothing of the actual breathing. This black metal singer gets it. He's breathing the whole exosphere off the sun. I guess that's what I mean. Sure, there's a drive to have a voice, to have been seen, all of that, but at the end of the end, I want to go out screaming that we hear each other rarely, and then rarely fully. That for all of my drinking with the best people in the world, I am tired, stupid cold, only impressionistically seen. I am the pink utterance of an oily sheen. You know what I'm muttering about. The leaves scream themselves from the trees. The worms unseat the damage from the soil that feeds the flowers around which orbit bees that hive it all up like a death metal show in a meadow that hears itself but doesn't listen to the stars that fling themselves out from eons of light distance through all the hypothetical dark to say, I'm here exploding right now, a billion years in your past. They say, I abhor a vacuum but require mathematical constants. They say, I'm tired of generating light out of chemical processes I cannot control. They say, this light you're receiving right now is the dispatch declaring I'm already gone. Now I'm the bizarre fluid dynamics in an upturned bottle of honey. Now I retain the blank math of your birds. I am the way and the light that you worship with solid rocket booster fuel. Look at me. I'm mouthing the words. Your bags are packed, but you're not ready to go. You're going to require your bees.